Have you ever just stopped and wondered, how many books are there? I mean, in the entire world. It sounds like a pretty simple question, but the answer, well, it's a mystery that stretches back through all of human history.
I mean, on the face of it, it feels like something we should be able to count, right? But as you're about to see, trying to nail down a simple number sends us tumbling down this incredible rabbit hole of history, technology, and even a little bit of philosophy.
So let's treat this explainer like an investigation. We're going to be the detectives, follow the clues, sift through all the evidence, and see just how close we can really get to cracking this massive historical puzzle.
Okay, so every good investigation has to start at the beginning. To even begin to grasp the scale of this problem, we've got to go back and trace how the idea of a book has evolved from ancient clay tablets all the way to the digital files on our screens today. So it all started with things like clay tablets and papyrus scrolls, where every single copy had to be painstakingly made by hand. Then boom, the absolute game changer, Gutenberg's printing press in 1440. That just sparked an explosion of knowledge. The 19th century then supercharged everything with steam power. And now, in the 21st century, we can create new books in the blink of an eye. Each one of these steps just dramatically cranked up the volume of written works.
But here is our first major roadblock, and it's a big one. You can't count what doesn't exist anymore. Just think about the legendary Library of Alexandria. Its destruction, along with countless others, means that an incredible number of original thoughts and stories have been wiped from the timeline. Forever. Just gone.
And beyond just lost history, there are a few key suspects that make a simple headcount of books pretty much impossible. Let's break down the main culprits. First up, and this is a big one, what even is a book? Seriously, is a pamphlet a book? What about an academic journal, a comic book, an ebook that only exists online? The definition isn't set in stone. It's a moving target, and it's changed completely over the centuries. Okay, next we have to get our heads around this idea of a work versus a manifestation. Think about it like this. Shakespeare wrote one play called Hamlet. That's the single unique work. But how many versions of it are out there? You've got hardcovers, paperbacks, every translation under the sun, audiobooks, ebooks. Those are all different manifestations. So when we're counting, are we counting one or are we counting thousands? It gets tricky fast.
And the complications just keep piling up. We have those lost works we already talked about. But then there are all the uncatalogued books, just tucked away in private collections or archives that nobody's ever inventoried. Then there's this whole category of gray literature. Stuff like government reports, dissertations, things that aren't really published in the traditional sense. And crucially, millions upon millions of books were printed before we even had a tracking system like the ISBN. Now, despite all of these massive challenges, some brave souls have actually dared to try and find an answer. So let's look at the biggest attempts to crack this code. The ISBN system, that little barcode number on the back of a book, was a huge step forward. It gives a unique code to each edition, which makes modern tracking possible. But it's kind of like starting a worldwide census in the 1960s. It's incredibly useful for everything published since then, but it tells us absolutely nothing about the centuries of publishing that came before it. Then, in 2004, came the most ambitious attempt yet. The Google Books project set out on this mammoth task to scan and digitize millions and millions of books from libraries all over the world. They were creating a massive database that could, in theory, be counting. So what did this colossal undertaking actually find? Well, in 2010, after sifting through mountains and mountains of data, Google announced its best estimate. The number of unique books in the world was approximately 130 million. But hold on, you knew there was going to be a catch, right? That number, 130 million, is the best data-driven guess we have, but it's still an approximation. It struggles with all those uncatalogued works, it excludes most of that gray literature, and it all depends on a very specific algorithm to decide what actually counts as a unique book. And here's the thing, that 130 million figure, it's from 2010. And since then, the 21st century has thrown a massive curveball into our investigation. I'm talking about the explosion of digital and self-publishing, which has changed the game completely. I mean, the shift is just staggering. If you look at the numbers, the amount of self-published titles released every single year now completely dwarfs traditional publishing. We are talking about millions of new, often untracked books just flooding the market annually.
It makes that 130 million number feel almost quaint. This has created what economists call the long tail. With the basically infinite shelf space of the internet, millions of really niche books can find an audience, even if it's a small one. It's an incredible thing for creativity and publishing for sure, but for our job of counting, it makes it exponentially harder. So, after this whole journey through time and technology and data, where does that leave us? What is the final verdict? What's the answer we've been looking for? Well, maybe the quest was never really about finding one specific number. Maybe it's more about what that huge, uncountable collection really represents, a living, growing testament to the human spirit. And that's the real takeaway here. A precise number is probably always going to be just out of reach. What we've really uncovered is the just breathtaking scale of human creativity. It's a story about our unstoppable, endless need to record our ideas, to share our stories, and to pass our knowledge from one generation to the next. So that 130 million isn't a final answer. It's more like a signpost, and it's pointing to a library that's growing faster than we can possibly count, and a collection of hundreds of millions of stories, with thousands more being added every single day. The real question isn't how many books there are, it's which one are you going to discover next.